Yeah, that's not how you do it. The Bush Pilot is a rare breed, flying in some of the most unforgiving of climates and terrain. To do so requires a special plane, able to get in and out of places where nothing else can. The E-Flite Turbo Timber offers these features in miniature, featuring flaps and optional leading-edge slats. Articulated shock-absorbing landing gear with oversized Tundra tires. Able to use both 3S and 4S battery packs out of the box. This turbocharged model should be extremely... Hey, where are you going? Like any other model, the Turbo Timber comes in a box, which helpfully reminds you that floats are included. Note that there are some parts in the sides. Parts are packed very well in both top and bottom of the box. While there are a fair number of parts in the kit, assembly goes quick. Of particular curiosity to me are the floats, which are well built with plastic mounting hardware and pre-installed rudders on both pontoons. However, on one side, the rudder was a bit sticky, which was quickly rectified by slightly loosening the pivot screw. The EPO foam is very smooth with pre-applied decals. Wings feature working navigation lights and offset hinged flaps. Here you can see the side mount points for the optional leading edge slats. I'll get to those later. The rudder is already connected with L-bend connectors and features a spring-loaded tail wheel. Oh, another light. Up front are even more lights and some scale-looking exhaust stacks. Battery hatch is opened by single push of a button. EC3 battery connectors are standard. Note that there are air entry and exit points which should keep things cool. The Maiden Fly model comes with the 6-channel AS3X Spectrum receiver with optional safe mode, and quite a few connections for lights and servos. The foam tires are pretty large, which I measured at about 105 millimeters or almost 4¼ inches. Multi-language manual is clear and informative. I think installing the float should be interesting. Setup charts for various flavors of Spectrum radios is also included. So let's start with the wheels. They are screwed into metal swivel plates with 2 screws. Next, the spring tensioners, which needed a partial disassembly of the center bracket to install. It was a little fiddly, but not too bad. When done, you got some nice flexi landing gear. Like the Timber X, the Turbo Timber comes with a metal and carbon horizontal tail spars. I recommend a carbon spar for docile 3S flying and a metal one for 4S batteries. So with the spar installed on one side, the tail pretty much snaps together, with a couple screws to hold everything in place. Installing the receiver control rod requires removal of the plastic keeper, which then snaps back on once placed into the outermost hole. A sturdy carbon tube functions as the wing spar. Note that the wing mount plate is not symmetrical fore and aft as it is slightly tapered. You know it is in right when it fits the cavity flush. The propeller assembly comes partially assembled and must be taken apart before installing. I used some soft grip pliers to help loosen the prop hub. Once loosened up, slide everything onto the motor shaft and re-tighten. So for this review, I will be using the Spectrum 4S 2200 mAh smart battery. These have programmable balancing circuitry built inside of them, hence the extra center connector. The final step is to bind the receiver. With a bind plug installed, the Turbo Timber bound to my DX8 with no issues.
Binding. DSMX 22 milliseconds. Telemetry.
Yeah, now we're cooking with oil. Lastly, it was time to hook up the lights. And with that, we are ready to commit flight. Second star to the right and straight on till morning. Up, down. All right, it's the Turbo Timber. Let's take this baby up for a spin, eh? Oh, looks like we got some traffic. We got a Viper jet on the runway. Looks like he'll be gone in a second. Bye-bye. Very nice. All right, I can catch him. I can take him.
The Turbo Timber.
The Turbo Timber. It's turbo, right? So I can catch up to jets. It's got a jet. All right. Whee! 4S power. Look at that. 4S, it just goes up and up and up and up and up and up. If I mention that, it just goes up. Okay, let's bring her back down to the stratosphere. Let's catch this jet. Throw some flaps in, we'll slow her down, see how she does in the wind. Flap to elevator mix per the manual was perfect. Ah, very nice. Very stable. And very slow. Flaps up. With that out of the way, time to loosen up a bit. Nice roll. A rolling half circle. Come up. Try a little bit inverted. Flies inverted beautifully. It felt like the timber really didn't care which side was up. Lazy inverted figure eights was like flying on easy mode. It's just a good, honest flying model with surprising abilities. Come up. Knife edge. Knife edge is great. Doesn't even need full rudder. Nice snap. Square loop. This is a lot of fun. Just kind of snap around, throw it in the corners. Doesn't really care if it's right side up or upside down. New stall turn. Roll. Twid. Whee! Let's do a touch and go. The timber settles in quite nicely for 3-point landings. See if we can slip her. A little bit of side slip. The rudder on this thing's great. Look at, just kind of do a nice little flat turn. Nice little flat turn. Let's slow it down a little bit. Can pretty much fly this thing just on rudder. That's rudder only. It did that so well, I decided to try something. One wheel, look at that. Look at that. Speaking of bush plane, we have all this grass. Let's see how she does in this tall grass here. Give us a little bit of flap, just for giggles. Hopefully
That's bad idea number 3.
Oops. Yeah, that's not how you do it. Back in the shop, it was time to install the floats. Remove the top brackets. so that you can install the cross supports. A through hole for the screw keeps the supports from sliding out, but don't fully tighten yet. The main struts are not identical, so be sure the correct ones are used for the front and rear. Once the struts are in place, the brackets can be fully tightened. Next, screw in the cross struts. A plate must be removed from the bottom rear of the fuselage. Now simply plug in the floats. Now reinstall the bottom plate that was just removed. And screw in the upper cross members to the fuselage. The spring-loaded water rudders use a lead and fishing line for control. That is attached to the bottom of the rudder. The setup works surprisingly well. Now it's off to the local pond, which was a little on the small side. No worries, this is a bush plane after all. The water rudders were pretty effective and the timber was stable on the water. Slowly advance the throttle to let her get on plane, and she's off in a jiffy with plenty of waterway to spare. Once in the air, it was like the floats were not even there. Aerobatics did not seem to suffer much. If anything, it seemed to knife edge better. No problem soaring around the sky, just like its wheeled version. Landings are equally easy. Oh, in case you're wondering, yeah, it will float upside down quite well.
If it's a bad idea, take one.
I just had to see if it could be done.
Okay.
Piece of cake.
Stand corrected.
Never doubt my abilities. Now watch me nail the landing.
Maybe not.
Okay, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
And that's how not to do it.
One of the more interesting parts of the Turbo Timber kit are these leading edge slats. Now these are optional and they must be glued in onto the leading edge of the wing. So normally I wouldn't use these because they're not really designed for aerobatic sport flying. But I was really curious about how well they work because these are just like in the real plane for a short takeoff and landing. They're used to redirect airflow over the wings at high angle of attack and low speeds. So therefore they're optimized for kind of upright flying and slow flying. And so I thought, wow, this is really interesting. Unfortunately, the manual says you have to glue these in, and I was not really willing to permanently glue them in since I was more an aerobatic flyer. But I did find a way to sort of temporarily affix them to the wing that should allow me to flight test them and get a feel for how they really change the flight characteristics of the aircraft without being permanently installed on the wing. So let me show you how I did that. Installing the slats is very easy. First, you have to peel off the slot covers. For glue, I'll be using plain old hot glue. I found that it would hold well enough, but is also easily removable. It's probably not good for long-term use, but it'll be just fine for brief flight testing. I did one mount at a time, working my way across the wing. Okay, let's see how she behaves. I'll have to say, the slats give it character. I'm almost tempted to leave them on permanently. E-Flite Turbo Timber with the leading edge slats. Let's see how she does. She's up pretty quick. So far, so good. So far, it doesn't seem like it changes much. You can hear the wind coming over the slats. It's a little noisier. Got a whooshing sound. Throttle back, throttle back. Swap elevator. That's really good. It's about pretty close to what it was with flaps before. Let's take it up and see how it stalls. Pretty good. It doesn't seem to drop a wing. This is full up, and it just sort of, I'm just kicking at some rudder, keep it straight. Full up. That's very nicely handled. I could land it like this. Just full. Look at that. Try some power on, slow flying. Slow speed definitely seems improved, but you can still slow it down too much. Nope, kind of will. Too much nose up, it'll. Oh! So, Will, if you really get aggressive with it with throttle, let's try it with flaps. Yeah, look at that. A little bit of throttle. Oh, it doesn't want to come down. There we go. A little bit of porpoising. You can almost, takes a little bit of stick gymnastics, it'll almost hover. All right, that's partial flaps. We'll try full flaps. It basically just hovers. Yeah, there we go. Oop, installed it. Let's see how well it does in aerobatics. You see it do a roll. Oh, it slows the roll down. Yeah. Definitely takes the sharpness out of the maneuverability. See, it's inverted. Yes, it still flies inverted. Remember I mentioned I could land it at full up? Let's see if I can actually do that. Need the speed off. Filling up, up, up. This is full up elevator. Just holding full. Holding full. Holding full. Holding full. Neat. I don't think you can do that without the slats. That's pretty darn cool. So this is the second of the Timber series that I've reviewed, the first being the Timber X. Both fly really well, and while the Turbo Timber is not as 3D capable, it really excels in its utility. Very good aerobatic ability, yet still flies very trainer-like. And speaking of trainer-like, the leading edge slats do seem to improve low speed handling a bit, but aerobatic and top speed performance will suffer a bit. It is great that floats are included as they are easy to install, and I had just as much fun flying with floats as with wheels. With large tires, it should be able to fly off all but the most unkept of grass fields. So no matter what your flying skills are, I think the Turbo Timber makes for a great throw in a car, fly anytime model.
If it's a bad idea, take one.